Good morning, you had a busy 25 hours. 21 videos across tech, AI, EVs, gaming, energy, and entertainment. We're covering everything from building a 4K gaming PC and benchmarking AI inference cards, to FIFA's broadcast network, Netflix's hiring philosophy, Sony's physical media war, and a whole lot of EV news from Germany to Australia. Settle in, this one's a full morning's worth. Let's kick things off with Linus, who put together a proper step-by-step build guide for what he's calling a true 4K gaming PC, meaning not just a machine that has a 4K HDMI port, but one that can actually play games at native or near-native 4K. The build comes in just under $2,000 at $1,974, and it's built around an RTX 5070 Ti. Linus was characteristically opinionated throughout. The GPU is an ASUS Prime RTX 5070 Ti 16GB at $900, and he made his feelings crystal clear. "I hate it," before walking it back to clarify it's the pricing he hates, not the card itself. He's nostalgic for when $900 bought you a flagship or a dual GPU setup. That philosophical frustration runs through the whole component selection section. On the CPU side, he went with an Intel Core Ultra 250KF+, part of the Plus series, which he says is significantly more than a mid-cycle refresh over the original Core Ultra 200s, which landed poorly. 6 P-cores boosting to 5.3 GHz, 12 E-cores. He chose the F variant specifically to save money since it has no integrated graphics, which doesn't matter when you have a $900 discrete GPU. He acknowledged the AMD Ryzen 5 5600X on AM4 with DDR4 is a cheaper alternative and perfectly viable since CPU bottlenecks matter less at 4K, but personally preferred the more modern Intel platform. The rest of the parts list is a study in pragmatic budget allocation. The motherboard is an ASRock B860M Pro A at $110. He called it a return to sanity in motherboard pricing. Storage is a Patriot P300 NVMe 1TB, PCIe Gen 3, no DRAM cache, under $150. He installed it in the slower M2 slot deliberately, saving the faster slot near the CPU for a future upgrade. RAM is Corsair Vengeance DDR5 6000CL 3632GB, though the actual kit didn't arrive in time, so he filmed with G-Skill at the same spec. He noted that DDR5 32GB runs $400 plus versus about $200 for DDR4 32GB, which is a real cost argument for the M4 alternative. The cooler is a Thermalright Assassin X120 Refined SE at $17.90. Yes, $17.90, which works on LGA 1851 because Intel kept the same mounting specs as LGA 1700. The case is a Gamdia's Athena M4M at $60, which Linus had genuinely never seen before filming, and he was pleasantly surprised. "I am freaking really liking it." Noting mesh on the back, top, and side, plus room for a full-size GPU despite the compact dimensions. The PSU is the sponsor Seasonic Focus GX-V4, 850W, 80 plus gold, ATX3, fully modular, 10-year warranty, $199.99. The assembly walkthrough is thorough and beginner-friendly. Key tips he emphasized: work on top of the motherboard box as a platform, keep the CPU socket cover for potential RMA use, verify standoff placement before mounting the board because extra standoffs can scratch PCB traces and kill the board. Check I/O shield tabs after mounting to make sure none fell inside ports. That check alone saves 15 to 20 minutes later. He coined what he called Charade's Law for RAM orientation. Labels probably face inward toward the CPU. Pre-attach modular PSU cables before installing the PSU in the case. And enable XMP immediately after first boot to get your DDR5 running at the speed you paid for. He also had a funny moment during front panel wiring where he confidently identified an LED toggle as a reset button, which it wasn't. Classic self-deprecating Linus. On the benchmarks, he ran several games. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 at 4K with no upscaling landed at 50 to 60 FPS with noticeable lows, but enabling DLSS quality pushed that to around 80 FPS. Linus said DLSS quality in its current state is pretty darn good. Cyberpunk 2077 At 4K, ultra ray tracing, no frame generation ran at 60 to 70 FPS average with minimums around 50. He described it as very smooth and consistent. Forza Horizon 6 at 4K cracked 100 FPS average, and switching to Ultra with ray tracing kept minimums around 77. The ray tracing visual difference in Forza was notably dramatic, he said. And for the undemanding hockey game tape to tape, it pushed 400 FPS, which got him genuinely pumped. The machine also ran very quietly, barely picked up on a mic even under gaming loads. Staying in hardware, but moving to something more exotic. Christopher Barnett over at Explaining Computers took a deep look at the Milk-V Jupiter 2, which he framed as historically significant. It's one of the first SBCs built around an RVA-23 compliant RISC-V processor. RVA-23 is a meaningful software compatibility standard, and hitting it is a real step toward RISC-V being a practical alternative to ARM and x86 for actual end-user systems. Christopher was his characteristically measured, enthusiastic self throughout, genuinely excited during unboxing when he found box-within-box packaging, and the board booted successfully on the first try. But he was also careful and responsible. He repeated multiple times that this is development or potentially industrial hardware, not something a general consumer should buy. If you want an SBC for everyday computing, he says wait for the RISC-V ecosystem to mature. The board he tested has 8 GB of LPDDR5 at 6400 MTS and 128 GB of UFS 2.2 storage. He ordered it from Ares in May 2026 for $250.86 after a $50 discount, plus about $90 in shipping and import duties, putting total cost around $340. The processor is the SpaceMint K3, 8x100 CPU cores up to 2.4 GHz, 8A100 NPU cores doing up to 60 TOPS of AI inference, and an Imagination Technologies GPU. SpaceMint also claims it can run 30 billion parameter LLMs, which Christopher noted without testing. Connectivity is interesting. There's Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, a nano SIM slot for 4G or 5G via M2, and a separate M2 slot for NVMe SSDs. And then there's something Christopher said he has literally never seen on an SBC before, an SFP Plus port supporting 10 gigabit optical or copper networking. There are also FPC connectors for UART, SBI, I2C, CAN, the full electronics interfacing stack. His one design complaint was pointed. A single USB-C port handles both power input and DisplayPort output. He called it a crazy design choice, since almost every real use case requires a hub to do both simultaneously. He used a powered USB-C hub and a 65W adapter in his testing. The board ships with Bianbu OS 4.01, based on Ubuntu 20.04, kernel 6.18, LXQT desktop on Wayland. First boot took many minutes, which he found worrying but ultimately successful. Software performance was solid for basic tasks. LibreOffice launched promptly, VLC played video fine, YouTube at 1080p showed 0 dropped frames, and even 4K streaming on a 1080p desktop showed 0 drops. UFS storage read speed came in at 480 MBs, which he called very respectable. Benchmarks compared against 3 older RISC-V boards, a Raspberry Pi 5, and an x86 6N100 mini PC. Geekbench gave 342 single-core and 1703 multi-core, massive jump over prior RISC-V boards, but still below both the Pi 5 and the N100. The standout result was Silverbench, a browser-based CPU ray tracing test. The Jupiter 2 scored 5284, which beat the Raspberry Pi 5. Christopher called this a very significant result. GIMP's lava filter came in at 8.3 seconds, way ahead of older RISC-V boards, but slightly behind the Pi 5 and N100. Bottom line from Christopher: the most capable of the 12 RISC-V boards he's tested, handles basic and many intermediate desktop tasks, but the ecosystem isn't ready for general users. If you're a developer or enthusiast who wants to be in early, the Jupiter 2 or equivalent boards from Banana Pi, Cipede, or SpaceMint itself is currently the best option. Now for one of the most genuinely exciting videos in the batch. Network Chuck got rare access to FIFA's 2026 World Cup International Broadcast Center in Dallas, and he walked through the entire technical pipeline that takes live footage from 16 stadiums across 3 countries and delivers it to broadcasters worldwide. Chuck was visibly giddy throughout, combining his genuine soccer fandom with his networking nerd identity in a way he kept calling a dream come true. He was excitable and used a lot of hyperbole, but he grounded it with real technical substance. The emotional peak was getting a live Wireshark packet capture of actual World Cup video traffic, which he described as the coolest souvenir ever. His guide was Christophe Barbe, head of broadcast infrastructure at HBS Engineering. The central question Chuck framed: how does a kick in Boston end up on a TV in Singapore? The IBC data center is the nerve center where all 16 stadiums connect via fiber. Each stadium has 3 200 gigabit fiber connections running over physically diverse paths. The 3-path design exists specifically to survive fiber cuts. Christophe says these happen often. But here's the interesting part Chuck made sure to emphasize. This isn't traditional primary plus backup redundancy. Every single feed, every camera, every audio track is sent twice simultaneously over 2 of those connections. Both are live. Both are used. This feeds into a packet-level selection mechanism he explained later. All production is centralized at the IBC rather than at stadiums. Shaders adjust camera color and brightness remotely from Dallas in real time. All audio mixing, replay servers, and graphics generation happen at the IBC. The replay server bank alone cost approximately $20 million. At the stadium level, Chuck visited AT&T Stadium in Dallas. There's a full shadow production capability sitting dormant. If all 3 fiber connections fail, stadium staff can produce locally and transmit via a dedicated satellite truck. The match airs no matter what. Failure is not an option, was the team's stated philosophy. Martin, the multicast engineer Chuck met, reported approximately 150,000 multicast flows active at any given time during the tournament. Chuck explained multicast clearly. One camera sends one stream, the network duplicates it to whoever wants it: Fox, ESPN, BBC, NHK, internally. Without multicast, 100 interested parties would mean 100 separate streams. With it, one stream enters and the network fans it out. The dual stream selection works on a packet-by-packet basis. Every receiver gets 2 identical streams, a red path and a blue path on physically separate networks. Whichever copy of each packet arrives first is used. Red packet 1 arrives first, red is used. Blue packet 2 arrives first, blue is used. Both links are genuinely active and both genuinely contribute. During filming, an actual fiber cut happened, caused by someone drilling. The MCR team was calm because the affected stadium had no imminent match. Chuck used it as a live illustration of exactly why the diverse path design exists. The packet capture section was the nerd highlight. Christophe gave Chuck a Wireshark PCAP of live World Cup traffic. A small capture, 10,000 packets representing 27 milliseconds of footage, which ChatGPT decoded into a still image from Portugal versus Germany. Then a larger one, 530,000 packets representing 1 full second of video at 5,196 megabits per second. Uncompressed, raw pixels, better quality than what you see on TV. Chuck filtered for SD211020, the IP media transport standard, and identified the structure. 1080p video means 1080 rows per frame, 4 rows per packet, 4,320 packets per complete frame. He found the red and blue paths on 182x and 181x subnets, with 0.20 addresses for video and 0.30 for audio, and confirmed 2 packets with identical sequence numbers but different destinations. The dual-stream architecture made visible. There was also a fascinating audio detail. A 2D display shows live ball position from sensors inside the match ball, which has a wireless charging system. Ground-level microphones around the pitch perimeter capture ball sounds, and the system automatically adjusts which microphones are emphasized based on where the ball is, boosting the nearest ones dynamically. Previously, a human followed the ball manually with a stylus. The entire IBC data center, network, everything is temporary, built in approximately 4 months. Teardown takes 4 to 6 weeks after the trophy is raised. Chuck also closed with an unusually personal and vulnerable moment, openly admitting stress and anxiety about finishing the video on time and ending with a quiet personal prayer for himself and his audience. It felt genuine. Speaking of hardware that isn't NVIDIA, Alex Ziskind did a thorough and admirably honest benchmark of the Tenstorrent Wormhole N300, a non-GPU AI inference card, going up against an RTX 5080 and an AMD RX 9700 for local AI workloads. Alex was candid and self-deprecating throughout. He nearly canceled the video when the first result came back at 3.6 tokens per second, stuck with it, and was visibly relieved when that turned out to be a one-time JIT warm-up penalty. His closing stance was cautiously optimistic rather than dismissive. He framed this as a software race, not a hardware verdict. The N300 is not a GPU. It cannot render a single pixel, has no video outputs, no CUDA. It's 2 chips on one PCIe board with 24 gigabytes of memory at 576 GB bandwidth, priced around $1,400. On the back, it has QSFP networking ports, important, and we'll get to why. Setup was not plug-and-play. The card arrived effectively dead after sitting powered off without firmware updates, requiring a forced firmware reflash that can brick the card, plus version mismatch troubleshooting. Alex compared it to a Windows machine that hasn't been booted in months. Once running, steady-state decode on Llama 3.18 be landed at 30 to 31 tokens per second. Under 8 simultaneous requests, total throughput hit 164 tokens per second, roughly 5 times the single-stream figure, which Alex called impressive for a small inference server context. Prefill speed reached 3,700 to 4,000 tokens per second. The architecture is genuinely different from a GPU. Instead of a sea of tiny lockstep CUDA cores, the Wormhole uses a grid of larger cores called Tensix cores connected by an on-chip network. Each Tensix core contains 5 RISC-V CPUs acting as traffic controllers, not math units. They stream data through a dedicated matrix engine with local memory. Data flows through the grid rather than hitting slow global memory repeatedly. Programming at the Metal uses their open-source SDK called Metalium, though most people just use VLLM. The QSFP ports are strategically interesting. NVIDIA removed card-to-card NVLink after the RTX 3090. The 4090 and 5090 only scale over PCIe, which Alex says costs roughly 30% performance. NVIDIA reserves high-bandwidth fabric for data center cards costing $30,000 or more. Tenstorrent put QSFP ports on a $1,400 card, meaning multiple boards can link directly and work as one. With only one card, those ports are unused, but it's a bet on ecosystem growth. There's also a gap between Alex's 30 to 31 tokens per second and Tenstorrent's official perf, MD figure of 44 tokens per second. Alex traced this to quantization choices. He used strict BFP8 throughout, while Tenstorrent's benchmark used BFP8 only in specific layers and BFP4 elsewhere. It's a software optimization gap, not a hardware ceiling. Head-to-head, the RTX 5080 decoded at 93 tokens per second, roughly 3 times faster, and also won on prefill. Then Alex checked tokens per watt across every batch size. The RTX 5080 won every single one. Despite using more total power, it's so much faster that efficiency in tokens per watt is higher. The AMD RX 9700, with 32 GB of memory and dedicated FP8 hardware, landed between the other two on decode, but drew close to 300 watts with modest output, finishing dead last on tokens per watt. Alex's core conclusion: for running an 8B model today, the RTX 5080 is both faster and more efficient, but the hardware on all 3 cards is capable silicon. The RTX 5080 wins because of 15 years of CUDA software development, not superior chip design. The race is about whose software stack catches up to NVIDIA first. His recommendation: if you want fast local AI today, buy NVIDIA or a Mac. The N300 is for tinkerers willing to bet on software maturity improving over the next 2 years. On the AI tools side, Nick Sareve walked through a Cerebras blog post that he described as genuinely non-bullshit, which he frames as extremely rare in the knowledge base and second brain content space. He was openly dismissive of most of that genre, calling typical YouTube knowledge base content total hot air and performative, and visibly excited that Cerebras skipped all the obsidian graph aesthetics and just built something practical. Cerebras, a major AI hardware company making fast inference chips, ingested gigabytes of internal data across Slack, their internal wiki and Confluence, all GitHub code repositories, netlists, and product requirement documents. The result is a system where any employee can ask any question about the business and get a contextually accurate answer. The system is currently fielding approximately 15,000 questions per day internally. The blog post was written by Isaac, Daniel, and Mike. Nick explained RAG from scratch with a clean example. Standard LLMs answer from general training data and give vague answers to specific questions. Ask, how tall is Nick? And you get which Nick. Nick Jonas is 510, but if you prepend the prompt with Nick is 62, the model answers precisely. That prepended information is what RAG retrieves and injects. RAG is just a mechanism for inserting relevant specific context above a user's question before the model sees it. The database it retrieves from isn't a naive row lookup database, but an embedding space LLMs understand intuitively. The part Nick got genuinely energized about was metadata enrichment. Raw data, say a Slack message, gets passed through an LLM that asks questions about it. Who is this person? Why did they say this? When? Where? The result is the original text plus a rich metadata wrapper, timestamp, subject identity, description, context, relevance, source. He compared this to digital photo metadata, the image plus GPS, timestamp, color profile. A message from a senior founder sent 30 seconds ago gets weighted far more heavily than a message from a junior employee sent 3 years ago. Recency and source authority are weighting factors throughout. The system has 3 layers: data ingestion and storage, a querying platform for natural language questions, and authentication, authorization, and auditing. Nick skipped the 3rd layer for his own build since he's a small team. He demonstrated the concept using a Slack thread example from a CPTO support channel. Maya posts that a restore stalls on larger clusters. Owen reproduces it with 128 shards. The system windows that thread, passes it through an LLM, and generates a structured artifact. Question, summary, resolution, code references, systems involved, source, timestamp. Future employees retrieve the answer without reinvestigating. For the live build, Nick used Claude Code version 2.1211 as his coding agent. He called it Fable 5 Intelligence, and currently the best available for this purpose. He fed the entire Cerebras blog post to the agent and asked it to build an equivalent system for Nick Sareve Media LLC with pipelines for Slack, Gmail across 3 accounts, GitHub, and YouTube. The agent autonomously built the pipelines. The architecture. Data sources feed into connectors through a distillation step that enriches each thread with question, summary, resolution, and systems fields, then into a PostgreSQL database with both full-text and embedding-based semantic search. For OAuth setup, Nick estimates about 5 to 10 minutes per data source. He ran a benchmark, 20 questions with the knowledge base versus without. With it, 17 out of 20 answered correctly, 3 honest partial answers or declines. Without it, 0 out of 20. One example question it answered correctly with specifics, which AI company recently pitched a paid sponsorship for his podcast. Abacus, AI pitched their ChatLLM product, and Nick declined the sponsorship, a fact the system retrieved from email or Slack. He had only about 640 documents in his personal build. The differentiator is retrieval quality, not quantity. Closely related to all of this agentic AI work, the DIY Smart Code channel did a tight, structured breakdown of a major Claude Code update that they say shifts the human role from babysitter to code reviewer. 6 categories of changes, and the presenter held back the most exciting one until the end as a payoff. The headline change is that subagents now run in the background by default. They no longer block your active session. You can have up to 200 running simultaneously before a cap kicks in. A notification fires when an agent completes or needs input. An agent's view shows the full roster. Control-X cleans up finished work trees without losing unpushed commits. Background agents even upgrade themselves after a Claude code update lands. And here's the payoff the presenter teased. When a background agent finishes real code work, you return to find a commit, a push, and a draft pull request already waiting for review. The overnight pipeline that used to need you at 2 a.m. now needs a code review over coffee. Other changes in the update. The fork command copies the current conversation into a background session while the original keeps running. Claude in Chrome is out of preview and available to everyone. Sonnet 5 is now the default model with a 1 million token context window. Screen reader mode makes the terminal accessible. Streaming now uses 37% less CPU on long sessions, and the binary is 7 megabytes smaller. On autonomy guardrails, the presenter's framing was more autonomy needs better breaks. Auto mode now works on Bedrock, Vertex, and Foundry without opt-in. A new reset command wipes the auto mode slate with a confirmation prompt. The old default permission mode was renamed Manual for Honesty. A bug where plan mode was auto-running file-modifying commands is closed. Destructive commands with unresolved variables now stop and ask before executing. Security fixes were substantial. PowerShell 5.1 had a permission check bypass, fixed. Single segment directory allow rules were quietly approving writes anywhere in the file tree, fixed. Invisible characters that could disguise malicious commands are neutralized in permission previews. The agent tool is hardened against indirect prompt injection. Docker commands that redirect the daemon now trigger a permission prompt. A new tool lets Claude end conversations with abusive users or jailbreak attempts autonomously. On resilience, network drops no longer abort a turn. Transient errors retry with exponential backoff. Rate-limited subagents no longer die silently, they report and resume. Background sessions survive stops, restarts, and even the daemon replacing itself mid-run. The presenter's closing question to the audience. Agents that commit, push, and open their own pull requests, is that the dream or a liability you would never allow near main? He wasn't selling it uncritically, which felt honest. The same channel also did a really sharp analytical piece on Boris, Cherny's viral AI agent adoption chart. The 4-step scale from 0 agents to 1,000 plus. And their core argument is that the chart is real and useful, but most people are stuck at steps 1 or 2. And the jump to steps 3 and 4 is not a skill problem or a tool problem. It's a budget problem that Anthropic's own marketing quietly obscures. Boris Cherny, the person who actually built Claude code, posted the chart on X where it got 380,700 views. His framing: one person is 10xing their output with Claude, but the rest of the org hasn't caught up. The presenter noted that the 194 replies mostly didn't ask how to reach step 4, suggesting the audience recognized the chart described a future they weren't living. Step 0, gated, 0 agents. The ceiling is Claude, AI chat. The bottleneck is legacy security and approval processes and a focus on minimizing cost per token rather than outcomes. Step 1, assisted, roughly 1 agent. You and Claude as a pair, mostly supervised. Every change checked before it merges. A change that used to fill an afternoon becomes something you finish between meetings. Step 2, parallel, roughly 10 agents. You become an orchestrator running 5 to 10 sessions simultaneously, each in its own worktree. Claude checks its own work before you see it. A backlog that used to take the team weeks becomes 1 engineer's afternoon. The presenter emphasized that steps 0 through 2 are reachable today with no additional purchase. The barrier from step 1 to step 2 is trust, not money. Plan mode drafts before it edits. Auto mode removes safe command permission prompts. Worktree isolation prevents parallel agents from colliding. None of this requires a purchase. Step 3, supervised autonomy, approximately 100 agents. The human role shifts to manager of managers. The question on your desk changes from "Did you read the code?" to "What context was the model missing?" Step 4, AI native, 1,000 plus agents kicked off by Claude, monitored by exception. Human role is a VP steering by intent. Now here's the central tension the presenter surfaced. Boris Cherny's chart puts step 3 at roughly 100 agents. Anthropic's own documentation recommends starting with 3 to 5 teammates and notes that 3 focused teammates often outperform 5 scattered ones. That's a 20x discrepancy from within the same company. The resolution, both numbers are accurate. They describe 2 different organizations. The cost math is what Anthropic doesn't publish explicitly. They publish roughly $13 per developer per active day, or $150 to $250 per month per developer, for one developer, not a fleet. Agent teams in plan mode burn approximately 7 times the tokens of a normal session, and costs scale linearly with team size. Running those numbers out, Step 3 costs an estimated $15,000 to $25,000 per month. Step 4 costs $150,000 to $250,000 per month. Pro and Max subscriptions don't cover Step 3 territory, and they share one token pool resetting every 5 hours. The presenter's practical advice: stop benchmarking yourself against Step 3. The relevant benchmark for most developers is the move from Step 1 to Step 2. That gap is the only one that's a fair fight. Enable worktree isolation, build a self-verification loop with tests and linting, turn on auto mode, and activate Claude code review, currently a research preview, to automate the checking bottleneck that defines Step 1. Before pursuing Steps 3 or 4, treat them as a budget line item, not a capability milestone. One more from the AI engineer track. This was a talk from Akram Baharlouei at Altos Labs titled From Tokens to Cells: Foundation Models for Single-Cell Biology. Unfortunately, no transcript was available for this one, so I can't give you the detailed walkthrough you'd normally get. The title suggests it covers the application of large language model-style foundation model approaches to single-cell biological data, treating genes or cell states somewhat like tokens, which is a genuinely active and exciting research frontier at the intersection of AI and biology. Worth watching directly when you have time, especially if you're tracking AI applications in life sciences. Similarly, the AI engineer talk, You Didn't Ship a Bug, You Just Wrote It for a Human, by Ravi Madabhushi from Scalekit came through without a transcript, so the detailed content wasn't captured. The title alone is a provocative framing. It suggests the talk may be about how bugs in AI-era software aren't just code errors, but misaligned specifications, or perhaps about the distinction between bugs written for human readers versus bugs written for machine execution. Definitely worth going back to directly if the AI engineering track is relevant to your work. Same situation with the third AI engineer talk, May Walter from HUD presenting From Blind Spots to Merged PRs, Continuous Agentic Performance Optimization. No transcript came through. The title suggests a talk about closing the feedback loop on AI agent performance, moving from identifying where agents fail or underperform, all the way through to actually shipping fixes via pull requests, perhaps with the agents themselves participating in that optimization loop. Given the Claude code update we just covered, this topic sits right at the center of what's moving fastest in the space. Worth a direct watch. On a completely different note, TED published a talk by artist and technologist Yiyun Kang called The Case for Making Art in a Crisis, and it was genuinely moving. Kang is earnest, mission-driven, and poetic throughout, with the conviction of someone who has found her life's purpose and is articulating it publicly for the first time at this scale. She opens by showing imagery from her artwork, Vanishing, a tribute to species extinguished by humanity, and frames her entire career around translating what she calls wicked problems into felt experiences. Her central diagnostic is precise and memorable. We can feel a paper cut, but we cannot feel a collapsing planet. She says we are drowning in information but starving for meaning. The chain of understanding is broken, and the result is disconnection and an inability to care. Her stated mission: render the invisible visible. The first major project she walks through is Passage of Water. She starts with a striking visual, a single tiny drop containing all of Earth's freshwater, and cites the statistic that half of humanity will lack clean water by 2050, with many already affected. She spent a year collaborating with Google and then NASA, who gave her exclusive access to satellite data tracking global freshwater over 20 years. She describes this as a rare gift that became the soul of the work. The question she wrestled with: what happens if you change the interface? She spent months figuring out how to make the numbers breathe. The result is a visualization of 20 years of water patterns, 2002 through 2023, rendered as a breathing landscape where you can see dramatic freshwater loss. Here, the numbers become instinct. You don't just see the data, you feel it. The work lives on Google's platform and was brought to COP28, where reactions from climate scientists, policymakers, and indigenous people confirmed her thesis. She then turns to AI as the next and deeper crisis. She identifies the real danger not as replacement, but as opacity, the black box problem. AI produces results but hides its logic. If algorithms are deciding our future, shouldn't we be able to see the invisible logic governing our lives? This leads to SOTA, which stands for State of the Art, created with students in her research lab. The project visualizes the architectures of 118 AI models, showing that these architectures are not identical uniform grids. When visualized, they reveal diverse, unique geometries, and the shape of a model determines whether it generates images, text, or sound. She also demonstrates how an LLM processes and completes a single sentence, making the mathematical prediction process visible. SOTA is accessible on mobile. Her framing was explicitly political. Understanding AI is the very first step to reclaiming our human agency. Her third and most ambitious project is Light Architecture, a physical installation where AI takes a physical breath. Modular components she calls neuropads are living neurons that pulse with light and move through space, running on the actual logic of AI. The installation is circular, inspired by the human brain, which weaves data across cortices with a flexibility AI can't yet replicate. Light spills outward and transforms the entire room into one giant living black box. Walking through it, through blinding light and absolute darkness, is meant to make the visitor feel the vastness of AI and confront whether it is lighting our way or pulling us deeper into darkness. Her closing was almost liturgical in tone. We are all deeply entangled, and by standing together, we can face the unknown. She carries genuine philosophical unease about AI alongside genuine wonder at what it makes possible. For something more grounded and charming, Switch and Click posted a video where the presenter teaches herself CAD from scratch using Onshape, working through 3 progressively harder projects over about a week, ultimately becoming what she calls the office hero by fixing a broken trash can. She was warm, self-deprecating, and genuinely enthusiastic throughout, openly embarrassed about her lack of engineering knowledge and leaning into the humor of it. The trash can was played for running comedy, with a coworker named Tyson as the recurring victim who kept being fooled by the broken pedal multiple times a day. The setup: the office bought a trash can from Walmart where the step pedal mechanism was missing a part. Every review online complains about the same defect. The lid has to be opened by hand, which she finds unsanitary. She wants to 3D print a fix, but no files exist for this specific part. Her leap: design it herself with essentially no CAD experience. She landed on Onshape for software, runs entirely in the browser, works on Linux, and it's free. The one downside: on the free plan, all your designs are publicly visible, but she doesn't care since she's not making anything proprietary. First project was modifying an existing lamp model, a Bamboo Lab puck lamp that needed a 16 hole changed to 62 for a different brand of light puck. She imported the file as an SDL and couldn't edit it, just highlighted as a solid object. Key learning: SDL files speak in triangles and aren't directly editable, while step files speak in calculus and are. She converted it online, got into Onshape, but the converted step broke the circular face into too many subfaces. She abandoned that approach, drew a fresh circle without using snapping to avoid constraint errors, typed in the correct diameter, used the extrude tool to cut a new hole. Print took about an hour. The new lamp fit perfectly. The office reacted with oohs and ahs. Second project: designing a dongle holder from scratch. Simple design: a rectangular cavity plus a cable clip with a circle cut into it. Used a micrometer for measurements. Printed in 15 minutes. Fit described as perfect. The main project was the trash can. No reference for what the missing part looks like. Walmart publishes no diagrams. She spent roughly half a day staring at the mechanism until her epiphany: it's a lever. Press the front of the pedal down, the back rises. A vertical stick connecting the back of the pedal to the lid would push the lid open. 2 parts needed: a hinge bracket attaching to the back of the pedal and a long stick connecting that bracket to the lid. 3 iterations on the hinge bracket, first too thin and only printed halfway, second beefed up but came off too easily, third stayed on. The stick was too long for any of her printer's build volumes, so she split it in 2 pieces. Press-fit connectors kept falling apart, so she used super glue to join the halves and double-sided tape to attach the stick to the bracket. A prototype, she called it. First test, stepped on the pedal, lid popped open. New problem, lid didn't fall back down. She examined the lid, found a small tab with a hole, went back to Walmart's product listing, and found a video showing the original design included a hook. She redesigned the top of her stick to include a hook kept falling off, used tape. With tape in place, lid opens when pedal is pressed and closes on its own, slowly but fully. Her reflection at the end was genuinely proud. The real value of 3D printing isn't novelty items, but fixing actual problems in your life using things you designed yourself. Moving into the leadership and culture space, Lenny's podcast had a long conversation with Elizabeth Stone, Netflix's chief product and technology officer, and it was one of the denser and more substantive executive interviews you'll find. Stone was measured, thoughtful, and precise throughout, the kind of person who reframes questions slightly before answering to make them more accurate. She got noticeably warmer when talking about Netflix's culture and the excitement of the current moment. The central argument she kept returning to: AI is not eliminating specialized roles, but demanding a new kind of generalist systems thinker. PMs can now ship code, designers can write PRDs, engineers can do product work, and this creates genuine identity confusion. Her framing: this is a storming phase before a forming phase. Every major technology transition produces this. The answer is not to put AI back in the box, but to be deliberate about capturing benefits while reducing costs. She distinguished healthy exploration from chaos. It's good that PMs and designers can prototype faster and go further in the product lifecycle before needing engineers. It's not good to have thousands of untethered prototypes, nobody aligned on solving an important problem. And accountability stays with people, not tools. Humans are responsible for what ships whether or not an agent wrote the code. On which roles changed most? PMs, designers, and data scientists have moved furthest. A second major unlock she highlighted is that Netflix has decades of experiments, consumer research, and institutional knowledge locked in memory that AI can now distill, finding relevant past experiments almost instantly. Business stakeholders in finance, content, and advertising can generate initial hypotheses and bring them to data scientists rather than waiting in a queue. But comparative advantages remain. Data scientists still ask whether data can be trusted and where data ends and judgment begins. PMs still frame problems correctly. Engineers still think about scale, quality, and downstream consequences. When Lenny asked whether Netflix is hiring more of any function, Stone's answer was a mindset, not a function. Systems thinkers. In core infrastructure, Netflix is hiring more distributed systems and infrastructure engineers who can look across all business domains and solve problems once at the platform level rather than repeatedly in local contexts. Because agents operate across multiple systems and need source-of-truth data and common paved paths. In design, the design systems thinker, someone who builds templates and design language systems, is now more important than someone who designs a specific feature. Without this, she says, the result is shipping a Frankenstein. Very narrow, deep specialization is trending down as a general rule, with exceptions for genuinely scarce technical domains like encoding or playback. The concern isn't the depth of knowledge itself, but the mindset that comes with rigid specialization, resistance to new approaches. On AI fluency in career ladders, Netflix placed an overlay across all talent rather than rewriting career ladders level by level. What counts as fluency changes almost by the quarter. The non-negotiable element is mindset, open to exploration, willing to try new things, good judgment about where AI is useful versus not, and actually using the tools. Coding interviews now allow candidates to use AI tools since that's the reality of the job. Her practical advice on developing systems thinking: step out one click from each problem. If asked to build a new Netflix feature, Ask first, what's the bigger consumer problem? What content types does this touch? Does my approach scale? Could this become a platform capability? You don't have to rethink Netflix's strategy, just zoom out one level and question whether you're solving the right problem in the right way. On Netflix's culture as competitive advantage, she frames their principles as excellence as an operating system. High agency, autonomy, top-of-market pay, talent density, fast risk-taking, minimal process. The goal was never the cultural practices themselves. They were a theory about how to get to excellent outcomes. She noted that top AI labs are now converging on this model, which feels validating. She was candid about what's genuinely hard, allowing decisions to be made by others even when you would decide differently, and resisting the instinct to add process when things get hard. Her answer to difficult situations is a blameless retro where individuals feel responsible enough to change their own behavior. On engineering's future, she drew a clear line between writing lines of code in a specific language and understanding how computer systems and products work. She believes the latter cannot and should not go away. She admitted genuine discomfort with agent-generated code she cannot follow, getting better performance without understanding why, and not knowing how to fix it if it breaks. She expects engineering will evolve toward fluidity in guiding and rationalizing agent outputs, but wants to hold onto the principle that builders understand what they've built. On entertainment's future, she believes it won't be one thing. Netflix is already expanding across games, live events, podcasts, and vertical video. She pushed back on Lenny's suggestion that whole AI-generated TV shows are imminent. Storytelling is fundamentally human, watching characters who lack humanity is less compelling, and humans will always be at the backbone of entertainment even as AI plays a material production role. Netflix recently acquired Interpositive, a post-production AI company founded by Ben Affolk, with capabilities including relighting, reframing, and changing dialogue after shooting. Now let's pivot to a big batch of EV news, starting with a genuinely historic milestone. The Electric Viking covered data showing that for the first time ever, battery electric vehicles became the top-selling powertrain in Germany in June 2026, outselling hybrids, petrol, and diesel. The presenter was enthusiastic and triumphant throughout. A win is a win, and I'll take it, with a clear note of "I told you so" satisfaction. He grounded it in solid data from ADAC, Germany's largest auto club, which he flagged as highly credible. The June 2026 numbers: battery EVs at 84,057 units, top powertrain for the month. Hybrids at 83,315, just 742 units behind. Petrol at 60,796, nearly 25,000 units behind EVs. Diesel at 33,000, continuing its long decline. Plug-in hybrids at 32,000. The EV win was razor-thin, but he argues a win is still a win. In market share terms, EVs took 28.4%, the highest of any single powertrain. Adding plug-in hybrids at 10.9% brings the combined plugged-in share to 40%, nearly 4 in 10 new cars had a plug. And the surge drove a 13.6% year-over-year reduction in average CO2 emissions of new cars sold in Germany. Measured reality, not a projection. What makes this especially meaningful? Germany canceled its EV incentives in 2023, causing a real sales slump that many commentators declared the market dead. The rebound to number one has happened without serious subsidies, which he argues demonstrates genuine consumer preference driven by better products and lower prices, not government handouts. He was candid about perspective. The total German vehicle fleet is still roughly 94% fossil fuel powered. EVs and plug-in hybrids together make up only about 6% of cars actually on the road. Fleet turnover takes a decade or more. He explicitly wants to give the full picture, not just cheerleading. His forward-looking argument was about gas station closures creating a self-reinforcing cycle. Rising EV adoption drops fuel consumption, marginal stations close, some ICE buyers get nervous about fuel availability, more people switch to EVs, more stations close. He predicts this feedback loop accelerates, and that by around 2035, buying an internal combustion engine car will seem bizarre. He speculated EVs could lead German monthly sales every month through the rest of 2026. On the EV performance car front, Sam at the Electric Viking covered the BMW electric M3 reveal. The central news: BMW's M division boss Frank Van Meel confirmed at the Goodwood Festival of Speed that the electric version will simply be called M3, not IM3. Sam leaned into the irony and drama of this, playing up the existential crisis it supposedly causes among traditionalist BMW fans with sardonic enthusiasm. He framed this naming decision as BMW making a clear philosophical statement. The future of performance cars is purely electric. Not hybrid, not multi-powertrain, just EV. He contrasted this with BMW's past approach of giving electric variants distinct names like the iX3 and iX5, calling the M3 decision intriguing. EVs are no longer a separate category, they are the category. On performance, BMW says the electric M3 will be the most powerful M3 ever made. Their new four-motor drivetrain platform can theoretically support up to 1,341 horsepower, which Sam converted to almost exactly 1,000 kilowatts. He doesn't expect the production car to hit that ceiling, but suggests even 700 horsepower would handily surpass any prior M3. On battery technology, BMW needs to deploy their new cylindrical cells, described as 4690 format, comparable to Tesla's cylindrical cell design, and needs a lot of them. The range challenge for a performance car is real. Track use drains batteries fast. Fast charging has improved to the point where a meaningful charge takes roughly 10 minutes, but racetracks don't have 500 kW chargers. That infrastructure gap is the core challenge. On design, Sam saw the car at Goodwood. He described it as futuristic, lower roofline, wide fenders, and a hood vent that he joked has no obvious purpose since there's no engine, humorously speculating it might cool frunk contents at speed. He admitted he's generally not a BMW design fan, but has warmed to their newer models. He contrasts these positively with other BMWs he finds ugly. Sam's comparison: he argued the Genesis GV60 Magna offers a similar driving character at a lower price. He's personally driven both a BMW M3 and the GV60 Magna and says the Magna feels similar in character. He acknowledged the Magna has synthesized engine noises and a fake transmission, and he preemptively defended the comparison by acknowledging listeners would think he sounds like an idiot. His point was practical. For performance car fans sticker-shocked by the electric M3, the Magna is a real alternative to consider now. His closing was playful mockery of petrol car fans panicking over the EV future. Brilliant and beautiful to see. Staying with the Electric Viking, Sam covered Toyota's confirmation that the next-generation Lexus LFA supercar will use solid-state batteries, targeting 1,000 km of range and a 10-minute fast charge. But he opened with a pointed, "I hope they are telling the truth this time," and maintained that thread of doubt throughout. His frustration was grounded in a detailed history of broken promises. In 2014, Toyota's own researchers announced solid-state batteries would be market-ready by 2020. In 2017, Toyota said it was targeting the early 2020s. A prototype was demonstrated in 2020, but problems with life cycle, degradation, cost, and manufacturability killed commercialization. At CES 2022, Toyota's chief scientist Gil Pratt said the first solid-state vehicles would be on sale in 2025 as hybrids. That didn't happen either. And as recently as last October, just 2 days after a Toyota executive reaffirmed the 2027-2028 target at the Japan Mobility Show, reports surfaced that Toyota was again delaying its EV battery plans. The current target is 2027 or 2028. Sam's closing question captured his tone perfectly. Genuine breakthrough or promise number 6. The claimed specs are impressive if real. First-generation solid-state cells targeting 10 to 80% DC fast charge in approximately 10 minutes and 621 miles, 1,000 km, on the WLTP cycle, not the more generous CLTC standard. A second-generation version targets 745 miles, close to 1,300 km. The core technical advantage: solid-state cells hold more energy in less space, which matters especially for a low-slung supercar where packaging and weight are critical. Sam made an interesting practical point. The new LFA likely won't be spec'd for the full 1000 km. He thinks Toyota may instead use a smaller battery to keep the car lightweight, which is the actual problem with current electric supercars. He cited the BYD Denza and Yangwang U8 as examples of EVs that are very, very heavy for a supercar, undermining their performance credentials. The LFA program boss Yukihiro Akita made a philosophically interesting statement. Lexus will not fake gear shifts or pipe an artificial engine, sounds the way Porsche, Hyundai, and Mercedes-AMG do. His position: buyers perceive an EV as fake when it imitates engine sounds, so Lexus wants to redesign the sound itself. Sam agreed intellectually. Simulated gearboxes are theater and actually slow the car down. While admitting with amusement he'd been testing the Genesis Magma that same week and found its artificial sound genuinely enjoyable despite knowing it was fake. His broader stakes argument: even if the solid-state cells are real, the moment that matters is not the LFA. It's when that battery chemistry reaches a Corolla-priced EV. And Toyota is now racing not just its own past promises, but CATL, BYD, and US companies like Factorial, all of whom are also heavily invested in solid-state development. Also from the Electric Viking, Sam covered comments from Ford's executive chairman Bill Ford, who publicly warned at a Washington, D.C. event that the United States cannot permanently block Chinese automakers from its market. The Wall Street Journal reported the remarks. Bill Ford's core argument: Chinese carmakers could find alternative routes into North America through Canada or Mexico, and American automakers need to be building vehicles capable of competing directly, not just benefiting from protectionist walls. His direct quotes: "We can't keep them out forever, and we have to be able to beat them at their own game." He also called for more consistent, long-term U.S. industrial strategy, which Sam interpreted as lobbying for government financial support. Sam took issue with the beat them at their own game framing, calling it a fantasy. Chinese automakers have advantages in charging speed, battery technology, and pricing that Ford simply cannot currently match. He allows that Tesla may be the one exception due to its full self-driving technology lead, but otherwise sees Ford as poorly positioned on the technical dimensions that matter most in EVs. He described the competitive dynamics plainly. Chinese companies are often willing to sell at a loss to gain market share, then begin profiting, then reduce prices again. A race to the bottom that's very difficult for established Western automakers to survive. He also drew a parallel to Russia's historic protectionism of its domestic auto market, arguing that blocking foreign competition entirely leads to technological stagnation and third-world product quality. The irony he highlighted: Ford itself has operated in China and sold millions of cars there, but its China sales are falling quickly. Chinese brands have already beaten Ford on its own turf in the world's largest auto market. Despite not yet selling in America, BYD is reportedly confident it can surpass Toyota in global sales volume without a single U.S. sale. Chinese influence is already reshaping Ford's strategy. Ford is preparing to launch a small electric pickup truck at approximately $30,000 USD, an incredible bargain if delivered. Ford is also producing lithium iron phosphate batteries under license from CATL. The upcoming affordable EV pickup will reportedly use gigacasting and slimmed-down wiring looms to reduce production costs. Sam's overall political read: neither Democrats nor Republicans are likely to open the U.S. market to Chinese vehicles anytime soon, so Bill Ford's warning, while directionally accurate, may not materialize quickly. But if it does, the U.S. auto industry would face severe disruption. Also from the Electric Viking, Sam covered a genuinely interesting clean energy story that he says almost nobody is talking about. Idemitsu Australia is proposing to build Australia's largest vanadium flow battery, 108 MW and 864 MWh, on the site of a closed coal mine in the Hunter Valley of New South Wales. He opened by flagging up front: this is completely different technology from lithium-ion, no lithium involved, and then immediately noted the irony: it's being built on a dead coal mine by a Japanese oil company. Idemitsu Australia is the local arm of Idemitsu Kasan, the Japanese energy giant. The project is the centerpiece of something called the Muswellbrook Clean Industries Precinct, on and around the former Muswellbrook coal mine, the exact site Idemitsu previously used to extract coal. The headline numbers: 108 megawatts of power capacity with at least 8 hours of storage, working out to 864 megawatt hours. For context, the next largest comparable project Sam knows of is the Western Australian government's planned 50 MW/500 MWh vanadium battery for Kalgoorlie. Muswellbrook is comfortably larger. Sam then explained why vanadium rather than lithium. A vanadium redox flow battery stores energy in liquid electrolyte, vanadium ions dissolved in tanks, pumped through a membrane stack. Advantages: significantly lower flammability than lithium-ion, much longer operational lifespan, easy scalability since more storage just means bigger tanks, and straightforward full recyclability because the vanadium electrolyte doesn't degrade chemically. You drain it out and reuse it indefinitely. He delivered what he called a point of Australian pride. The vanadium redox flow battery was invented in Australia. First patented in the 1980s by Australian chemical engineer Marius Kazakos at the University of New South Wales. He framed this as homegrown technology that the rest of the world ran with, and Australia is finally building it at serious scale on home soil. His broader point: Australians often focus on what the country fails to do and should acknowledge what is actually being accomplished. The precinct also includes the Muswellbrook solar farm developed with Swedish developer OXX and the Bells Mountain pumped hydro energy storage project in partnership with AGL. Solar generation, pumped hydro, and long-duration flow battery storage, all on former coal mining land. He was transparent about what's still unknown. The project is in planning and proposal stage, construction hasn't begun, cost hasn't been disclosed, and the production timeline isn't confirmed. He committed to reporting those figures when Idemitsu officially announces them. His framing at the end: a Japanese oil company turning a dead Australian coal mine into a clean energy hub using technology an Australian engineer invented 40 years ago. That is the energy transition in one single postcode. Rounding out the EV section, the Electric Viking also posted a used EV buying guide for the Australian market, pushing back against a drive.com article he found poorly researched. The presenter was confident and slightly combative throughout, clearly irritated that the article's authors don't own EVs, framing himself as someone with real ownership experience. His important framing caveat up front: these aren't the 8 objectively best EVs on the market. They are good cars that have lost significant value, making them genuinely worthwhile on the second-hand market. He also noted the Australian used EV market is tight right now, and that a wave of lease returns is coming soon that should flood the market with inventory, so if you can wait a few months, that's probably smarter. Number 8, Cupra Born. Built on Volkswagen Group's proper MEB dedicated EV platform, better range and performance than the Mini Cooper SE, the drive article recommended, rear-wheel drive distinctive looking, under $40,000. Number 7, BYD Dolphin. A used Dolphin can be found at a similar price to the BYD Atto 1 the drive article recommended, but it's a newer car with more range. He praises the Blade battery, interior space relative to external size, and efficiency. Available well under $30,000. Number 6, Polestar 2. Brutal depreciation on new purchases becomes the used buyer's gain. Single motor versions under $40,000 AUD, which he says is less than $27,000 USD. Praises Android automotive infotainment and premium European feel. Number 5, Hyundai Kona Electric or Kia Kona Electric, specifically the 64 kWh long-range version. Normally, he'd criticize it for not being a dedicated EV platform, but makes an exception, exceptionally efficient, delivers over 400 km real-world range, available well under $40,000. Number 4, BYD Atto 3. He was candid, he personally owned one and neither he nor his wife were fans, but he credits it as historically important for introducing affordable EVs with the Blade battery to Australia at volume. Spacious, adequately equipped, reliable. Buying one in the low 30,000s is a good deal. Number 3, MG4. He covers several variants including the XBOWER Hot Hatch, which he's seen change hands under $40,000. Describes it as a genuine rear-wheel drive performance car with 50-50 weight distribution, built from the ground up as an EV, one of the best driving hatchbacks at any price. Software is a weakness. He recommends prioritizing LFP battery models. Number 2, Tesla Model Y early standard range models are just creeping under $40,000 AUD. Praises cargo space, supercharger network, and software that continues updating even on older hardware. Expressed genuine disbelief that Drive, left it off their list entirely. Number 1, Tesla Model 3, specifically 2021 and 2022 models with the lithium iron phosphate battery, selling for $35,000 or even as low as $30,000. He called this the undisputed best-used EV under $40,000 in Australia right now, world-class efficiency, strong tech, good boot space, performance, and an LFP battery he says will outlast the car itself. One more from the Electric Viking. Sam covered the story of Volkswagen declining to build an electric Beetle revival, and Chinese automaker Great Wall Motors stepping into the gap with the Aura Ballet Cat, which flopped spectacularly and is now being relaunched with more power and a gender-neutral rebrand. Sam was upbeat and conversational throughout, with a clearly amused, almost disbelieving tone when describing the Ballet Cat's original marketing gimmicks. He framed it as a masterclass in how not to market a car. The Aura Ballet Cat debuted in 2022, priced between $28,000 and $33,000 USD. Great Wall marketed it explicitly and exclusively as a car for women. The features designed to appeal: a lady driving mode that automatically maintained extra following distance, a built-in selfie camera, and something called Warm Man Mode, a single-button function that blasted heat and adjusted climate control to ease discomfort during menstruation. Sam repeated this last one with barely concealed disbelief and confirmed he was not making it up. The market response was decisive rejection. The car was too expensive, and the gimmicks alienated buyers. Data from the China EV Data Tracker, covering roughly 4 years from July 2022 to June 2026, showed total sales of just 8,500 units, approximately 2,000 cars per year. Against China's total auto market of 32 million annual sales, he called it a complete unmitigated flop. Despite that, Great Wall Motors is not scrapping the car. Regulatory filings from China reveal an updated version in development. The motor goes from 169 horsepower to 150 kW, 201 horsepower. Top speed increases to 180 km/h. The vehicle weighs 1,750 kg, which Sam notes is heavy for its size, so the extra 40 horsepower won't produce a dramatic performance difference. Battery is lithium iron phosphate from SVOLT, a Great Wall Motors subsidiary. The branding is changing entirely. Ballet Cat is being dropped in favor of Aura 6, fitting into GWM's existing Aura lineup alongside the Aura 5 hatchback sold in Europe and the upcoming Aura 7 wagon. Sam endorsed this rebrand, noting with dry humor that few men would willingly drive something called the Ballet Cat. He argued that dropping the gendered marketing and adding 200-plus horsepower could make the redesigned car a more viable seller. His broader point: when legacy automakers leave a gap, in this case, an obvious electric Beetle Chinese manufacturers fill it. Volkswagen chose not to legally challenge Great Wall Motors over the obvious design similarities, which Sam found tacitly admirable. His personal verdict: not bad as a copy, but too heavy, getting a bit dated, and not compelling enough at the roughly $30,000 price point. Finally, Yang Ye posted a detailed report on the ongoing Sony physical media backlash, and the core new angle is that the protests are now actively damaging the marketing relationships between Sony and third-party game developers. Yang Ye was energized and sympathetic to the protest movement throughout, clearly finding the sustained disruption righteous and necessary. He described developer anger as a great sign, that is a good thing, while also expressing genuine sympathy for individual developers caught in the crossfire. The background: Sony announced they're ending physical disc production after January 2028. A single social media post about this has amassed over 180 million views, with a ratio Yang Ye describes as essentially unprecedented in the gaming space. Every post PlayStation makes is being ratioed regardless of subject matter. A post about Halo campaign, Evolved coming to PS5, posted only 2 hours before filming was already heavily ratioed. Marvel's Wolverine's trailer on YouTube, posted only 2 days before filming and described as one of the most highly anticipated upcoming games, has comments dominated by physical media complaints. PlayStation's summer sale announcement was similarly disrupted, with people pointing out that physical discs can often be purchased cheaper than digital sale prices, while providing ownership protections digital purchases lack. The issue went mainstream. Domino's Pizza UK posted a joke mock statement declaring they were going digital pizza only, and it went viral. Multiple companies dunked on Sony. NBC News picked it up, Yang Ye's threshold, for when enthusiast issues become mass audience issues and attract lawmaker attention. Lawmakers from France, Mexico, and Brazil are now involved. Multiple ongoing lawsuits against Sony in the US, UK, and Netherlands around anti-competitive practices are being reinforced by the physical media decision. The core new reporting came from the analyst Moore's Law is Dead, who Yang Ye credits as reliable on behind-the-scenes industry information. The argument, disrupting Sony's marketing posts, is as strategically important as canceling PlayStation Plus subscriptions, because those posts are paid for by third-party developers as part of formal marketing deals. When Rockstar or Ubisoft pays for a Sony marketing push, and the resulting posts are flooded with turd emojis rather than engagement with the product, those companies receive no value from the marketing spend. In future negotiations, they'll be reluctant to purchase similar campaigns from Sony. Moore's Law is Dead compared this to AMD's FSR situation, where social media disruption was severe enough that AMD's CEO Lisa Su had to intervene personally. An anonymous developer then privately confirmed and added detail. Sony gives developers a certain number of free tweet slots, but they're in extremely high demand and limited quantity each day. Developers who want a post to drop at an optimal time, like a game's launch day, must either beg profusely or pay tens of thousands of dollars to secure that slot. The developer said if the backlash had hit during their game's launch window, they would have demanded a redo or at minimum been very upset with Sony. Yang Ye showed a real developer who posted publicly noting their launch trailer had 400 comments all about physical media. He noted the developer handled it smartly by posting that reaction, which generated hundreds of thousands of views on its own, giving the game organic exposure despite the circumstances. He also covered the Crunchyroll angle. Sony owns Crunchyroll, which absorbed Funimation, and Crunchyroll is now significantly scaling back physical anime disc sales. Yang Ye called this insult to injury, noting that physical discs are extremely important to anime fans for preservation purposes. His position throughout: sustained financial disruption, PlayStation Plus cancellations, drops in console activity metrics, and the breakdown of developer marketing partnerships, is what forces large companies to reconsider. He acknowledged analysts believe Sony plans to simply wait the protest out until digital-only becomes normalized, but argues sustained enough disruption can change even seemingly ironclad decisions. That's everything from the last 25 hours, a genuinely wide-ranging day covering the future of AI hardware, agentic workflows, broadcast infrastructure, EV milestones, energy storage, automotive industry politics, and the ongoing battle over physical media. Lots to chew on. 3 transcripts from the AI Engineer Conference didn't come through, so those are worth a direct watch if the life sciences AI or software engineering tracks are relevant to you.